Hello, Whole Nourish ladies. Thanks for joining me today in the kitchen. We are going to be discussing quinoa today, and I'm going to share with you two of my favorite recipes using quinoa. Now, quinoa is packed with protein and fiber. It is actually a seed. It is not a pasta, although many times we do substitute it as a pasta. But one of the recipes that I'm going to be doing is something that you wouldn't typically think quinoa would be in. But I'm going to be making a vegan tortilla soup with quinoa, and then the second recipe will be chocolate quinoa brownies. So I will take you step by step on how to make those, and let me know what you think. Thanks again for joining me. So I've got this on a medium heat, and I have sauteed it with 1 tablespoon of olive oil. And also at this point when I'm making the soup, I always like to go ahead and add some salt and pepper. I just find that it brings out more flavor. So, you can go ahead and do that at this point too. So we're just sauteing this. What we're gonna add next, now that we've gotten this stuff soft, I've probably sauteed this, I don't know, probably 7 minutes. So we've got it a good softness. It smells amazing. And one of these containers usually has about 4 cups of broth in it. And we're gonna keep this a vegan soup, but if you weren't concerned with that, you could also use a chicken broth or a beef broth would be fine. I'm going to dump all of that in there. We've got it heating up, coming back to heat now, and it's going to eventually boil, and at that point we will turn it down. But since I just put in the broth and the tomatoes, I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of ground cumin. That's popular in Mexican dishes, and it just kind of gives it a little spice. And then I am going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cayenne pepper. Again, that's going to give it a kick. So anyway, we're just going to let this keep cooking over a medium to high heat until we get it to a boil. Now is the time that we're going to add our final ingredients, which I've got 1 can of organic pinto beans that I'm going to put in there, and of corn, but this is frozen corn, and I once again like the fire roasted. Again, if you're not a fan of spiciness or whatever, just use regular corn and the regular tomatoes. Not a big deal. And the last thing is our quinoa. So what you can do is you can cook it in here. It takes about 15 minutes to cook in the soup, but since I already cooked a big batch of quinoa ahead of time, I'm just adding it already cooked. So the recipe called for 1/3 cup of uncooked quinoa, so I'm doing 2/3 cup cooked quinoa. So we will not cook it much longer, the whole soup, much longer after that, because we don't want the quinoa to continue to cook. So I'm just gonna give this a good stir, let it cook for a few more minutes, and then turn it off, and it's ready to serve up. And you can serve this with just how you would with any tortilla soup. So either tortilla strips or crushed up tortilla chips. You could add a little cheese if you wanted to. You could add a little sour cream. Obviously don't go too crazy with that. One of my favorite things on this soup is avocado, and especially with all the spicy things that I have on here, the avocado really cools it off. So anyway, that is our soup, and I hope you all enjoy it. Okay, for the quinoa brownies, we are going to preheat our oven to 350 degrees. we're going to put in 1 1/4 cup of cooked quinoa. We are going to put in 1/2 cup of maple syrup. We are going to put in 1/2 cup of unsalted almond butter. We are going to put in 1/2 cup of cocoa powder or cacao. We are going to do 1/4 cup of coconut oil melted. We are going to do 2 flax eggs. And again, that's 1 tablespoon of flaxseed meal per 3 tablespoons of butter. This is 1/3 cup of unsweetened applesauce. Make sure it's unsweetened. We added sugars in here. Then we are going to do 2 teaspoons of vanilla and about 1/2 teaspoon of salt, sea salt. That will just bring out the flavors of the chocolate and the sweet. And last but not least, we're gonna put in 1/2 cup of vegan chocolate chips. We are going to put the top on this. And turn it on. Okay, so I processed that for a few minutes, and I did scrape down the sides a couple times, but what you get is what looks just like a chocolate brownie batter. And the next thing we're gonna do is load that into an 8x8 baking dish. Okay, so we have processed and made our brownie batter, and we are going to pour it into this 8x8 glass baking dish that I have lined with parchment paper, as well as sprayed with coconut oil, because we don't want our brownies sticking. And the parchment paper, just, you know, I used to not use parchment paper. I don't know why, because it makes life so much easier. And not only with baking, but just for salmon. Take for instance, I just made salmon the other night, and basically anytime I'm using a dish now, I put parchment paper underneath, and it keeps whatever from sticking, which makes cleanup a lot easier. And yeah, it doesn't, I feel like it's keeping my pan safe too. So parchment paper is your friend. So if you don't have some, go get some. So we have put this in, I've preheated the oven to 350 degrees, and we are going to bake these for 30 to 40 minutes.